Sustainability reporting for palm oil companies. This is the focus of our course. Welcome to an engaging three-part series that focuses on exploring the role of sustainability reporting in the palm oil sector. I am Christian Jespersen, Assistant Professor in Sustainable Innovation and Entrepreneurship at the Copenhagen Business School. And in addition to this role, I am the Executive Director of the Impact for Innovation Lab, which is a multidisciplinary research environment focused on the field of sustainability and the need to create more robust impact metrics that support and encourage our sustainability transition. This project has as its strategic ambition to improve the quantity and quality of sustainability reporting by Indonesian palm oil companies. The initiative will present tangible solutions for companies to clearly illustrate their commitments, reference certification schemes, and illustrate their adherence to them. The project's ambition is centered on fueling the aspirational sustainability talk of Indonesian companies as an important means of supporting social change. To date, palm oil companies have been locked in a discourse that is focused on proving that they're less bad. Instead, the project and its deliverables will support Indonesian palm oil companies' efforts to be more good.
The rise of the Sustainability Development Goals provides both an opportunity and inspiration for meeting sustainability commitments. The world currently is also focused on climate change, and we must work together to support all industries in their sustainability transition. Sustainability reporting offers an important roadmap ensuring those commitments.
Palm oil is in 50% of the products we buy in the supermarket. People are pretty familiar with the problems associated with palm oil, that it causes deforestation in tropical countries, that it threatens exotic animals like orangutans in Southeast Asia, or that it's associated with land grabs and human rights abuses when it's grown in large plantations. What people may be less familiar with is how amazingly efficient and profitable palm oil is as a crop. Oil palm grows very well in tropical countries with minimum care, and the oil from the palm nut is very versatile. It can be used for a multitude of purposes, from frying food to making face cream spreadable. Perhaps the biggest driver for palm oil today is its use as a green source of energy. In addition, palm oil production is a lifeline to many farmers in Indonesia, where palm oil accounts for 11% of the country's export earnings. The palm oil sector lifts people out of poverty, providing a stable source of income. With this increasing demand and problematic history, palm oil has come under considerable scrutiny from consumers, NGOs, and increasingly governments. Consumers especially are increasingly interested in the story of palm oil and the story of the products that they buy. A further complication in this story is the complexity of the supply chains of these products. Supply chains are often extremely complex and opaque. For example, a supermarket might buy from one supplier who buys from a trader, the trader buys from someone else, and so on and so on. This makes it difficult to access the information needed to really understand the structure of a supply chain and therefore the origin of a product. Many companies, both producers of palm oil and buyers of palm oil in consumer markets, are making public commitments to sustainable palm oil. What's really challenging is to take these commitments, no deforestation, no peat, or no child labour, and to implement them in practice. Some companies have also made public commitments to boycott palm oil, and there is increasingly conversations in Europe and elsewhere about using the law to regulate the use of palm oil. I don't believe that simply boycotting controversial sources is the answer. WWF has carried out a study into the effects of boycotting palm oil. They found that companies would have to switch to alternative oils, some of which would require up to 9 times as much land as palm oil, leading to further deforestation. So if boycotts aren't the solution, what is? We've witnessed the palm oil industry take some important and successful steps forward over the last 20 years. We now understand supply chains much better than we ever have before. There have been great advances made through product certification, supply chain management systems, and efforts to incentivize legal and environmental compliance. Increased demand for transparency and new, exciting technologies have made it possible to start to fully understand the story of our products. Certification is not an option for everyone. Some producers can't get certified, and many buyers can't. Certification is not an option for everyone. Some producers can't get certified, and many buyers can't access the volumes of certified palm that they need. Risk-based due diligence is an effective measure that can be used in these situations to bridge the gap and provide assurance that high-risk palm oil is not part of a supply chain. A risk-based approach means that you can focus attention where it is most needed. Due diligence in the context of supply chain management means taking 3 steps. First, understanding and mapping your supply chain. Second, assessing risk. And third, treating risk. Robust information is essential to each of these steps. For step 1, you need information about the structure of a supply chain, the sources of material, suppliers, and trade routes. You also need information, let me go step 1 again. For step 1, you need information about the structure of your supply chain, the sources of material, suppliers, and trade routes. You also need an information management system to keep track of it all. For step 2, to identify potential supply chain risks, you need to understand the wider context of the country of origin in terms of legal requirements and socioeconomic structures. In addition to the context, you also need to assess what risks could occur in your supply chain. When you understand the context and potential risks at a national level, you need to determine if the risks are in fact relevant for your specific supply chain. For step 3, often called risk mitigation, you need information about what actions to take to effectively avoid or manage risks in a supply chain. This may include knowing which documents are required or which authorities to contact to confirm compliance. NEPCON have been working for the last 5 years to collect and analyse risks information relevant to responsible production and sourcing of agricultural commodities and wood products. This information is now freely available on the NEPCON Sourcing Hub. The NEPCON Sourcing Hub is an online information platform that provides detailed risk analysis across different commodities at a national or subnational level for a large range of countries. Indonesia is the world's top producer of palm oil. It exported 31 million tonnes of the commodity in 2018. This generated $22.9 billion in foreign exchange. Palm oil is a presence in people's everyday lives. Negative publicity about how palm oil plantations operate in the world's top 2 palm oil producing countries, Indonesia and Malaysia, is shaping the perspectives of policymakers in Europe and consumers around the world. Risk-based due diligence refers to the steps companies should take to identify and address actual or potential risks in their activities or sourcing decisions. The UN Guiding Principles for Business and Human Rights were endorsed unanimously in 2011. They make it clear that companies have a responsibility to make sure their activities do not fund harm and abuses. Palm oil producers can use the risk-based approach to sourcing to meet the increasing scrutiny and demands of their customers and ensure they are providing responsible and sustainable palm oil to an ever more discerning global market. Palm oil producers are already doing a lot of very credible work. Some have adopted no deforestation, no peat, and no child labour policies. Some producers have sought to secure certification, including from the United Nations Global Compact, the International Sustainability and Carbon Certification, and the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil. Risk-based approaches can support these efforts and provide credibility and assurance to them in the ever-changing and dynamic global palm sector. So the NEPCON Sourcing Hub is a free website which houses all of the risk assessment data that NEPCON has been working on over the past 5 years. The idea of the Sourcing Hub is that it's a resource that companies can use to understand risks in supply chains and to treat those risks using the due diligence framework that we also provide for free on the website. So it's a place that companies can go to understand how supply chains work, what they should be looking for and asking for in their supply chains, and how to treat risks as they emerge. So since 2014, NEPCON have been working with a number of organisations around the world developing national risk assessments. We started this work looking at timber legality supply chains. So with FSC, we had a huge project to develop 65 national risk assessments, evaluating the risk of sourcing illegal timber from countries around the world. We realised that this was a really effective resource for companies sourcing timber, so we decided to expand our analysis beyond timber into other commodities, so palm oil, soy and beef, and looking at a broader range of risks beyond legality. So we call that the Corporate Social Responsibility Risk Framework, and there we look broadly at social, environmental and legal risks that occur in supply chains for those commodities around the world.
Ekspektasi atau harapan dari Indonesian palm oil companies dengan adanya sustainability reporting adalah untuk dapat melaporkan komitmen mereka dan juga implementasi upaya yang sudah mereka lakukan untuk implementasi dan monitoring dan evaluation yang mereka lakukan berdasarkan tentunya performance indikator KPI yang sudah mereka tetapkan dan juga berdasarkan performance measure bagaimana mereka mengukur performance mereka. Setiap progres yang telah dicapai, hal itu yang ingin dikomunikasikan sebagai suatu bentuk pencapaian untuk menunjukkan bahwa memang perjalanan menuju kelapa sawit berkelanjutan atau sustainable palm oil itu adalah suatu perjalanan yang panjang dan memerlukan komitmen yang sungguh-sungguh dan upaya yang melibatkan banyak pihak, akan tetapi akan sangat baik apabila perusahaan dapat menunjukkan progres yang ke arah positif bahwa memang mereka belum mencapai ke sana, tetapi mereka sudah selangkah demi selangkah menuju kepada kelapa sawit berkelanjutan. Ada kemajuan di dalam sejalan dengan waktu dan juga menunjukkan keseriusan dari komitmen mereka.
The risks of sourcing palm oil from Indonesia are quite diverse. When we analysed the risks in Indonesia, we looked at the three primary palm oil producing regions, so Kalimantan, Sumatra and West Papua, and analysed the social, environmental and legal risks there. Unfortunately, we detected a lot of risks in supply chains from Indonesia. So in terms of environmental risks, we identified issues around biodiversity loss, deforestation and environmental damage occurring as a result of the establishment of palm oil plantations and also the ongoing management of those plantations. In terms of the legal risks, one of the biggest issues in the palm oil industry is around land tenure and illegal land grabbing around establishing palm oil plantations. Unfortunately, land tenure is not very secure in lots of parts of Indonesia, so there is lots of contention around who owns the land that the forests existed on before they were cleared to establish palm plantations. So many communities in Indonesia feel that their land rights weren't sufficiently respected at the point of allocating the land for the palm oil plantations. In terms of social risks, unfortunately, in palm oil plantations, often people are exposed to social damage, so things like illegal labour or health and safety risks. Sometimes illegal migrant workers are used in the palm oil plantations, and instances of modern slavery and child labour have been detected quite widely in palm oil plantations in Indonesia. So this means that both producers of palm oil in Indonesia are struggling to tell a good story about their supply chains where they are a responsible source of palm oil. And it also means that the public perception and the perception of buyers of palm oil in Europe or in America or other markets is that palm oil is a bad commodity. So bridging that gap of understanding what the risks actually are and really pinpointing the risks is really key to understanding how to treat those risks in a supply chain. And that's really what we've tried to do with the Sourcing Hub, is to make that really granular, detailed information available to both producers and buyers of palm oil so we can bridge that information gap. Well, it's a very interesting time in the palm oil sector at the moment, and there's a lot of people much more knowledgeable than me talking about what's going to happen in palm oil in the next 5 years. Here in Europe, there's a lot of discussion going on about how the law can be used to regulate the palm oil sector on the demand side. Most recently this year, we've been hearing a lot about the regulation of the palm oil inputs into biofuels, and it sparked a bit of an international furor around this perceived slight on the palm oil sectors in Malaysia and Indonesia. I think increasingly demand-side markets are going to use legislation to regulate these markets, and I think it's very likely that the European market will be regulated in the same way they've regulated timber, to put requirements on companies who are importing palm oil and other forest impact commodities to determine whether those commodities are having a negative impact on the environment. So that's the kind of legislative approach, and I think that's going to be really taken up both here in Europe but also around the world. But I really do think it will be led by the European market. On the other hand, companies themselves, so buyers of palm oil and companies that produce products that contain palm oil, are increasingly making commitments to their customers and to the public about sourcing sustainable palm oil. Some companies have gone as far as boycotting palm oil and saying that they're going to exclude it from their supply chains. But I think what we will see increasingly is companies trying to really address these palm oil risks in a constructive way and work with their suppliers to maintain palm oil as a commodity. WWF did a research report around the effect of boycotting palm oil globally, and the effect would be really perverse. What would happen is we would have to seek alternative oils, and most alternative oils use a lot more land and a lot more water than palm oil, so it wouldn't actually be a very good environmental outcome. Also, the land would have to be re-cleared, replanted, and the social impacts on all of the people who rely on the palm oil sector would be devastating. So I don't personally think boycotts are the way to go, and I think we need to have a more sophisticated and nuanced approach to addressing the risks in palm oil supply chains. And I think on the production side, the efforts of palm oil producers to meet their customers' demands are really staggering. They're working really, really hard to clean up both the actual risks in their supply chains, but also misperceptions around risks. So making the information available to their customers that they need, providing information about compliance with legal requirements, with social requirements. We're seeing that transparency and radical transparency becoming much more part of the dialogue around the palm oil sector. So yeah, I think it's a really exciting time, and I don't think palm oil is going anywhere. I just think we need to be practical and pragmatic about addressing these risks in a step-by-step approach.